Okie dokie. So yeah, we're starting with the CGD class. So let's see what we left off with last week. I kind of went over some stuff real quick. I think last week, on Thursday, I said we'd review it again. Let's not take this out of the way. It was not this. Oh yeah, it was this, I think. Yeah, so um, this is our original CSS slideshow. That's the one that automatically goes using just HTML, CSS. And then here we've got a Bootstrap carousel. So Bootstrap is that basically like a library of classes that you can use to give you some functionality without having to do the designing or coding yourself. You just basically add the classes to anything you need, or just go to the website. Actually, you go to getbootstrap.com and then just copy paste their components, such as the carousel. And then we have the W3 Schools slideshow example. This one just had to copy paste some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript. Okay, so I mean, if you are in the JavaScript class, I might go over how to make a slideshow. I haven't done one in a while. There's really no point in making, reinventing the wheel, as they would say. You could just find the code already created for you online and use it. But I mean, it's still good practice to know how to make one yourself. And I think the W3 Schools example, you could probably just look over how they made that one and figure out how they made it. But if you're just in the CGD class, you're not interested in the JavaScript, you could still just copy paste the code. And I did this real quick on Thursday, so I'll do it again. Hopefully, doing it twice will help us learn it better. So I did actually, I think I did upload that to OneDrive if you want to go download it. Yeah, I'll upload this lesson if you're having internet trouble. Uh, yellow. Yellow is the sign-in case you don't have that already. Okay, I got a couple things out of the way. Let me go over this. So this is just the CSS slideshow. I'm gonna start with this again. I want to show you how we can quickly add a couple other types of slideshows in case you want to include those in your web page. So again, I'm just gonna go over doing this again real quick, adding the Bootstrap and the W3 Schools carousels or slideshows. So let's open this with Visual Studio Code. And also, let's just get this out of the way because you always see me doing this. Git bash here, and then I type code and then dot, and then that opens Visual Studio Code here. If you want to be able to do that, if you're on Windows anyway, I think bash is already built into Macs, so installing Mac is a little bit different over there. I mean, installing a bash or git bash or git is going to be a little different for you. but this is something that you'll eventually have to do if you're taking all my classes. You're gonna have to install, not GitHub, but just type in Git in Google and you'll get to this page, git-scm.com, and just download. Well, if you're on Windows, download for Windows. And then there's also, I think for Macs, it's actually built into Mac. You don't even have to download it. But anyway, once you have this Git, you go through the installation process and install it on your computer. On the Windows anyway, you should be able to right click and say git bash here, which basically just opens a terminal in that current location. So if I say git bash here on the desktop, it puts me in the desktop. And then if I open a folder and I say git bash here, then you'll see that it says desktop canvas. So it's just whatever folder I'm in, it will open it there. And then when you're in a folder, like in this folder, you say git bash here, you open the terminal, and you just type code, period. And that's just a shortcut that says open Visual Studio Code over here. That's what that period says. And then you just press enter and it opens it. And then you could close that. Okay. Anyways, but it's the same as saying file, open folder, and then finding the folder and doing it that way. So here's our animation. I think last week I was able to add a sixth slide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's 5 right now, but let's say we here, let's duplicate like the second image. Actually, no, let's not duplicate anything because it's gonna make things confusing. I'll just go to Pixabay, and let's just take this bird, and we'll take it in 640. Download. I'll just add that to my images folder. There we go. And once I have that in there, I'll make that my sixth image. Just copy paste one of these and change the image source to the bird. So I'm just adding this just to clarify that if you do decide to add more images and you're creating you have your CSS only slideshow that we created together, then there's going to be a few steps, such as adding the HTML, so the div that's going to hold the image. You're going to need to do that, of course. And then in your CSS, in this case we're using SCSS. I'm going to go to my SCSS file. Make sure you click watch Sass so the compiler starts working. So if you make any changes here, save it. It will update your styles.css. Because remember, at the end, styles.css is really what matters. It's just we're not directly editing it. We're editing the SCSS file, which is updating the CSS file. Okay, so in styles.scss, we've got to look for our slideshow elements. So we've got here slide container. We've got our slide. And then we've got these nth child selectors. So since I've just added a new one, that should probably be right here. Right before the 5, we'll put 6. Nth child 6. Because it's going backwards. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The order doesn't really matter, honestly. Because, I mean, it matters how you put it. If you put 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 here, just make sure that your sixth image is the one with the biggest delay. In this case, we're gonna change the total animation to 30 seconds since I have a new image. Why am I changing the animation from 25 seconds to 30 seconds? Because now I have 6 images. 25 was good for 5. It's 5 times 5, 5 seconds each. So now that I have a sixth image, it's 6 times 5. Again, 5 seconds each image. So now I have 30 seconds. So the first one is always going to be 0-second delay. The second one should be a 5-second delay. The next one 10, 15, 20, and then 25. So by the time we get to that last image that's going to play in the slideshow, which is child 1, we're still using that same animation I called fade down here, which goes through all these steps, going from, real quick, it fades in the beginning from opacity 1 to 0, and while it's fading, it's going to be the top image, so that's why the z-index is high, it's 100. And then from 79% to, well, I guess after 2%, the z-index drops to 1, so that it's in the back, so that the next image will be on top. That's fading. Anyways, while this is in the back with the z-index of 1, it's still invisible, but then at 80% to 99%, we go from opacity 1. Actually, from 79 to 80, we go from opacity 0 to 1, so it's fully visible already. But it's still in the back. We still have a z-index of 1, but at yeah, I guess from 79 all the way to here, it's opacity 1. So technically, I don't think I need this 80%, because think about it, I've got 79%, opacity 0. Actually, no, I do need it maybe, because it needs to be visible while the top image is sliding over it, because we're going from 0 to 1 here, so I do need it, I guess. But from 80 to 89, what changes? Nothing really changes. It's just maybe this one is unnecessary. I don't know. I don't want to remove it though, because I know that the way it is now works exactly how I want it to work. Okay, before I test it though, there's some other changes to be made, I think. Actually, no, that's it. It was just the delay that I had to add. I had to increase the animation to 30 seconds and then just modify the delays. Just make sure we go 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Yeah, so by the time we get to the last image, 25 seconds has passed after this first image faded out. So then it's the last image's turn. Then it gets to do the fade, and then the whole thing starts over again. So yeah, I think that was all we need to change. Nothing else. So it was just add the HTML element to hold that new image. Then add a sixth child. Increase the total animation to 30 seconds. And then modify the delays. And then let's see, just to test it out real quick, I could also, actually no, I'm not gonna speed up the animation, because that would require changing a bunch of numbers here. So we could just make sure it goes through all the images and we see that new bird that we added. I think that was the first slide. So when it starts over, we should see the bird again. Yep, there it is. And it's behaving as you would expect. I don't see any problems in there. So so that's good news, because I always forget that do we need to modify these percentages or not. I mean, there might be cases where you do need to, but in this case we're not. And of course we could add slide right We could even, I think we could even mix and match. Like some of these will slide out, some of them will fade out. Because I kept fade on some of them and I put slide right on some of them. Yeah, so some will fade, some will slide. That's cool because they are basically the same timing, from 0 to 2% and then 79, 80, 99. So all that's different is what's happening, um, going from left to right, and then this one's going from opacity 1 to 0. And you could even probably add, if you copy paste this, call this one slide down. Instead of saying left 0, we could say top. Just change all these lefts to top. Save that and just add that to any of these. So maybe the first one will say slide down, and then fade, slide right. Let's do slide down for this one as well. And you can see now I've got that first one slides down, next one slides to the right, the next one also slides, no, the next one should fade, there we go. The next one should slide right again, next one should slide down, there we go, and the next one should fade. Right, so you could have different animations. It's gonna fade, slide down, slide right. Okay, so that's the CSS animation. Again, very complicated. Even though I've done it many times, I always forget exactly what numbers to put in there, where to change these percentages. I think that's the hardest part, though, figuring out the animation. But if you don't want to go through all that, you could go to Bootstrap and we'll use Bootstrap. So sometimes I go through teaching Bootstrap more thoroughly, like actually going through the different classes and going through their grid system and everything. But honestly, there's really no need to use Bootstrap that much anymore because of CSS grids, it allows you to easily modify your layout on your page, go from like 4 columns to 2 columns to a single column. But originally Bootstrap was useful because there was no CSS grids and there was no CSS flex or flexbox, so that's why it was created in the first place. But they have been updating it over the years. Like right now it's at version 5, so there are still, of course, useful things in there, such as if you go to docs, click on components, you'll see all the different components that you can get that would be difficult to create on your own. Okay, like for example, what's an accordion? It's just this, basically, a little drop down. I mean, we know how to make drop downs using CSS. We did it for the menu. Okay, but this is not using JavaScript. It's relying on that focus state and the focus selector. So that means once you open something, you can't really like highlight text and read through it like you can in this one. So that's one advantage of using the accordion here. You can open something, drop it down. You can still click around without the thing closing on you. You just have to click that button to close it again. And you'll get this nice animation and everything included just by copy pasting this code, adding it to your site. But of course, before you can copy paste this code or the code for any of the other components like the carousel, like this slideshow, before you can use these, you need to first make sure you're connected to Bootstrap. That means going to getting started, click on introduction. It'll tell you you're going to need to copy paste the style sheet to the head before all your other styles load. Um, so you'd copy that, and then you can paste that just in your head where you would normally paste style sheets. The reason why you want to put it before your style sheet is so that your style sheet has the last word. So in case you're trying to customize stuff, this will hopefully override some of the stuff that this might cause, right? Because the last thing read is gonna have priority, unless the stuff here is way too specific. Like you use very specific selectors in Bootstrap, and you don't use specific selectors here, these will still override these. Specificity matters. Right, so you have to hook up the Bootstrap CSS. So add that after your title. So again, you just copy paste it from the getbootstrap.com introduction. And you're also going to need the JavaScript. So there's going to be a couple JavaScripts. There's a dependency called Popper, which you need for certain components. Not every component is going to require Popper, but it's just something. You don't need to know what it is exactly. It's just the library that Bootstrap JavaScript needs. Okay, no questions yet, right? All right, so copy that CSS, and then when you're ready to copy the JavaScript bundle, you could either copy this one. It says bundle, and then it says separate. So you have an option, either get this one or get these two separately. And you could just click the copy button here. This will be pasted anywhere, I guess, just common good practice to put it right at the end of your body. So there it is, script. And I'll leave a comment here. I'll say Bootstrap bundle. Oh wait, that's a JavaScript comment. We need a HTML comment, which looks like that. Exclamation dash 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 arrow. So there's our Bootstrap bundle. This was our Bootstrap CSS. Not to be confused with my own CSS. So once you have that, and you have that, so the CSS and the JavaScript, then you can start using Bootstrap. And actually, even before you start doing anything, you'll notice your page might look different if you're not already using a custom font. You'll see that your font changed. In my case, though, I do have my own font already being used, so it's not going to really change that. But it will have little effects here and there on your page once you include the Bootstrap CSS on your page. Um, anyway, so all we needed Bootstrap for though was just so we could use that accordion, or sorry, not the accordion, the carousel. So the way you use it is just go to getbootstrap.com, again click docs, and so introduction shows you the links that you're going to need. But if you ever want to use any of the components, just go to components, look for something that looks interesting that you might want to use, and then click on it and check out the examples. You can see the example code. You can just copy paste it. So I'll grab a simple one here, just a slideshow with buttons. So I'll just click that copy button. It should copy all of this and then paste it into my page wherever I want that slideshow to appear. And we've got a main section that I've included my own slideshow here. My CSS slideshow. Leave that comment there so we know that's what that is. And after that though, I will add, well, I'll just hit paste. And that should paste in that Bootstrap slideshow. So let me copy this. We'll call this one Bootstrap Carousel. Okay, so not to be confused with my own. So that's mine, CSS only slideshow. This is the Bootstrap slideshow. Let's see if it works as is. I think no, we had to maybe modify a couple things. Yeah, so I mean it's there. It's just the images are not real images. As you can see here, they're just 3 dots. It says image source equals 3 dots. So change that to an actual image. So erase those 3 dots. Type in images slash grab a picture. Okay, so there it is. Now I've got my own slideshow and we've got our Bootstrap slideshow. I guess by default it comes in full size. So you might want to make it smaller by throwing it in some column layout. But we'll do that after I add one more slideshow. So here's our original slideshow, our Bootstrap slideshow. And actually, let me give you guys time to add a Bootstrap slideshow. Let me know if you have questions. But I just walked you through how to use it. It's pretty easy because all you're doing is copy pasting a bunch of stuff. The only thing you need to change is your image source. Those 3 dots, erase them and then add your actual image. I didn't use the most simple example. The most simple one here doesn't have buttons. That's basically our CSS slideshow that we made with no buttons. So I did the one with controls. I copy pasted that one. Here's the second example. And there's another example with these dots here. Not dots, but lines. Anyways, they're just indicators for which slide you're on. And you could click on them to switch slides as well. I don't know if these are mobile friendly. Let's check if it works on a mobile. But then again, we can't be 100% sure until we actually open this on a phone to test it. But I'll try using Google's built-in tester here. I don't think it has slide functionality. You still have to click the button. But again, can't be sure unless I test it on a actual phone. I know what's going on here. We've broken our layout, or maybe the preview is just messed up. Switch to something else. iPad. iPad looks fine because it's bigger. But Pixel 2, we've got a... And I think that's just this image right here. The width is too big, maybe. It's our slide container. Yeah, I gave it a width of 500 pixels. If I take that off, we don't have that issue. But it's strange though. Why would 500 pixels be too much? Width 500. I mean, now it looks fine though. Oh no, now it doesn't. Refresh and it does not look good anymore. So might have to figure out the width situation. Well, I guess what you could do for the width on a mobile device is just add a media query and make the width 100%. That way it won't be too big, causing this to happen. Okay, the Bootstrap one is fine because I think that does have a width of 100%. But yeah, I was saying because it's too wide, we might have to go to our CSS. And you can see here I put slide container with 500 pixels, but I can go to my media query. And do we have a selector for slide container? No, we don't. Okay, so after nav, after header actually, let's add, probably gonna need this anyway. We'll add main because this is inside the main, the slide container. So I'll just say main slide container dot slide container with 100%, and that way it should look fine on smaller devices. Yeah, it seems to be okay on all of them, so we're good. Alright. And then yeah, the Bootstrap one already, again, Bootstrap is like designed from mobile first perspective, so they're already designed to work well on phones. You just have to include your Bootstrap components and it should fit right in. So the only thing I would modify here is switch to 2-column layout, or just make this smaller because right here it's too big. Alright, any questions adding Bootstrap? I'm gonna give you guys maybe 2 more minutes without talking. Oops, don't need to check my emails. Let me give you guys 2 minutes to add Bootstrap to your slideshow page. Or you could, I don't know, create a just a brand new document if you don't want to mess up what you're working on. Just make a new document and link Bootstrap with getting started, introduction, get the CSS and the JavaScript. Then just copy paste the component. You'll notice also that Bootstrap has nav component. This is pretty useful to use. The only thing with using the Bootstrap navigation is it's gonna be hard to style it how you want. So you might be stuck with their styling. You could change the colors. There's a class you can add to your Bootstrap header or navigation. I forgot where you had to add the class, but you can change the colors. Let's see. I can't modify this, but if I could, that would be nice. But I can't really change that. Oh yeah, and it does use Sass. If you're using Sass and you downloaded the actual CSS, might be easier to modify the styles because there's looks like there's variables you can change, like the default spacing or like the padding, the default font size, the link color. All those could be changed if you modify those variables. But the way I'm using it, I'm just linking to it, so I can't really modify anything. Why do I have two of these open? Okay, that's something else. Yeah, because I'm linking to it this way, I'm linking through this CDN or content delivery network, basically just a link that you can use to link to that CSS. But the alternative is to actually download that bootstrap.min.css file, or I think you can also download the SCSS file, or it might be a whole bundle. You just download all of them, and then you just have to add that to your styles folder if you want to do that way. But I'm not gonna go through that because I want to waste too much time on Bootstrap. Looks like I'm getting a silver alert. Missing elderly. Probably Biden gone missing. Uh, Navbar. So I think, do they have a separate? They have navs, and then they have navbar. I guess navs would be separate little areas you could add a little navigation, and navbar is like your main navbar. Um, what else can we use from here? I guess it depends on how we want to build our page. So far, this whole page is just like a sample page for um, carousels or slideshows. Let's add that one last slideshow. But was that enough time for you guys to include Bootstrap on your own? Anyway, since no one has questions, I'll move on to again showing you how to add the W3 schools slideshow. And some of you I've seen you were able to do. I know there's been a couple of you that have used this in your projects without me telling you to, so it's not that hard to figure out. You guys can figure it out just by looking through here. But let me just show you real quick. So if you want to get this type of slideshow, here you go. Step one, add the HTML. So add that HTML somewhere. I don't know if I should include it in main. Yeah, might as well. We'll add that in main as well. Paste that in there. And let's call this W3 schools slideshow container. Okay, we've got our HTML added. And you can see here, so let me just look through what it comes with. So the HTML for the slideshow, you get a div with a class of slideshow-container, which is great because my own slideshow has a container called slide container instead of slideshow container. So that means we won't have any conflicting name issues there. And then it says full width images with number and caption text. So we've got a div here that's going to hold a number, class number text, 1 out of 3. We've got another element here, an image element with the actual image. See, it has a style width equals 100%. And then we've got another div for the caption. So it's just it has a class of text, and there just says text in there. These classes obviously don't do anything until we add the CSS, which I guess would be the next step. And then we also got the next and previous buttons here. We got 2 links basically. A class equals previous, on click equals plus slides -1, and then this is just a symbol for an arrow, I think, right? And hashtag 10094, that basically gives you these little arrows. So that's what this does. And then on click equals, it's an HTML attribute for executing a JavaScript function. So whenever you say on click equals, you're supposed to put in the name of a function in there, a JavaScript function, and JavaScript functions are just basically blocks of code that do things. And in this case, clicking that previous button will execute this plus slides function, and it'll pass in -1 to it. So I guess that's to go left, and then the 1 will go right. Okay, it's the same function, but the number you pass in will make a difference. And then you also got the dots and circles, I guess, to indicate which slide you're currently on. You can also click those to switch to a slide. So that's another function. It says current slide 1, current slide 2, current slide 3. So it's just a function that will take you to one of the 3 slides when you click on the dot. Okay, and those are probably not visible yet. Yeah, because I still need to add the CSS. So that's the next step. So we added the HTML. Now step 2, add the CSS. They've got box sizing border box, but if you look at my CSS, I think I've already included box sizing border box, so I don't need to copy that. And then the rest of it I will copy. You can see it comes with add keyframes, fade, so it has its own. Okay, that's kind of okay. So I need to change my name. We're both using an animation called fade. I'm using that for my CSS. That's also what they called it here, so I'll have to change the names. Unless, is there a different example that doesn't use that? No. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy paste that CSS. And just to keep my own style sheet clean, because I don't want to add too much stuff here, I'll make a new one, call it W3 slideshow dot css. We'll paste this in here. Right, so and then in order to use that, we'll use @import. So I'll go to my styles.css and I'll say @import URL, and we want W3. Let me rename that. Rename. I put two S's accidentally, so call that W3 slideshow. And then we'll import it here. We'll say W3 slideshow.css. Okay, so now those styles should be included. So yeah, so now there's, well, at least the dots are showing up. I don't know what happened to the arrows though. They might be behind this guy. But let's add the rest of it, and also let's change the names of these animations, because I've already got an animation called fade. I'm just gonna call this I think it's case sensitive, so just changing it to a capital F would be enough, but I'll call this, I'll leave this one alone actually. And no, I'll change this one, because if I change the W3 slideshow animation from fade to something else, probably would have to modify the JavaScript as well. So just to avoid that, I'll call this my fade. And then wherever I'm using it originally, I'll put my fade. And save that. Okay, so we've got our HTML, and I just copied the CSS into a new file, and I imported that into my own CSS file. You could also, as an alternative, instead of doing this, you could just link to w3slideshows.css in the head of your document. Just make another link here and link to style/w3slideshow.css. Doesn't matter really, but you could do that or that. Next, we need to add our JavaScript. So that was our step 2. Now let's move on to step 3. Add JavaScript. So copy all of this. And we're going to need to add JavaScript, so we'll have to create a script tag. So here's my Bootstrap bundle script tags. Right above that, I'll add a little comment here. W3 slideshow JS. I'll paste it. Oops. Paste it within a script tag. Paste. Save. Okay. So there's some funny stuff happening. Like I can't see that third slideshow. Let me refresh. Image 1, image 2, image 3 not found. Okay, of course. So just like the Bootstrap HTML that we copied, the W3 slideshow also has some fake images that we need to change. Image 1, there's no such thing, so erase that. Type images slash use my own images slash images. There. Okay, let's see if anything's showing up already. Okay, yeah, it's there. It's just I don't know why it disappears. It was doing this last week too, right? I forgot what I did to fix it. Let me try to remember. Because as it is, it doesn't work normally. So I forgot exactly what we had to change here. Was it in the CSS or the HTML? Or was it in the JavaScript? So there's three places possibly that I have to change stuff. Let me just open last week's example because I already fixed that. I just don't remember what I did to fix it. Oops. Code dot. Alright, so here was our stuff that I had to copy paste for the W3 slideshow. Um, I'm gonna use an online comparison tool to see what's different. Compare text. We'll just do a basic text compare. And I will compare my W3 slideshow. Copy, paste that in there. Compare that with this one. Copy, paste, compare. So what is different? Okay, the image source is different. All right, that's fine. That's just a different. I'm using a different image. That's why. I changed the class names to W3 previous and W3 next, just in case. But I don't think that was the issue. And then for my script, again, I added W3 in places, but I don't think that was the issue. So skip that. And I guess there's no difference in the HTML or the CSS. I mean, or the JavaScript. So that means, unless maybe I did have to change these, I don't remember. But let me now compare the CSS files. So go to my styles, W3 slider, copy, paste, go to this one, copy, paste. Let's compare. Um, okay, so there are differences here. WebKit transition, background color, 0.6 seconds, ease. For some reason, I removed that. Not sure why I removed that. Or no, I don't think I removed that. I think when I used the live SAS compiler, it automatically added that. Yeah, that's what happened. So that's not it either. Okay, then and then there's also the height and overflow hidden. I don't know if that's gonna make a big difference. But again, I wish I could remember what I changed last week to make this work normally, but it should just work fine when you copy paste it, but it doesn't. And I don't know if it's because I'm doing something wrong or it's just W3 Schools gave us a slideshow that doesn't work how it should. Um, this is the one that does work normally. No, this one does not work. This is the one that works. This one does not work. Okay. And oh, wait. No, I don't think that's it either. This one does not have that error. Okay, well, there's one difference here. We've got this failed to find valid digest and integrity attribute. What is this? Popper.js. But that's Bootstrap related. It shouldn't affect my W3 schools slideshow. Alright, anyways, I don't want to waste time trying to figure that out again, but try adding just one. I mean, obviously, it doesn't make sense to add all three of them. You can have a slideshow in there, just use one or the other. So far, the easiest to grab it and use it is this Bootstrap one. But again, you're gonna have to make sure it's not like huge like this. So you could give it a max width or something. You could well, put it inside a container. That's the easiest way. If you try to customize the actual Bootstrap code yourself, you're gonna have a bad time. So instead, go to my HTML, find where I copied that Bootstrap carousel, and let's throw it inside a div or a section or something. Put it inside a section. Give that section. Actually, we don't even need to give it a class. Just call it section and take all that Bootstrap carousel code. Make sure I don't go to the W3 stuff. I'm just gonna cut that, paste it here. So there's one section. I'll also put my own slideshow in a section. Now hopefully that doesn't affect anything, doesn't break my slideshow. It shouldn't, so it's fine. And I will put the non-working W3 schools example in another section. Wait, am I on the wrong file? No, I'm not. Okay. I thought I put this in main. I guess I didn't. So I'll remember to move this into main after I move it into the section. And since all this JavaScript is related to the W3 slideshow, I'm also going to put all that stuff in that section. Just organizing stuff here and putting them into 3 sections that will go into main. So I'm just moving that into main. So currently main should have 3 elements inside. My slideshow, the Bootstrap slideshow, and the W3 slideshow, which fades away for some reason, doesn't show up again. But since they're all siblings now, they're all children of main, I can go to my CSS, my styles.css, and find main. Looks like I didn't make a selector for it, so I'll just make one now. Say main display grid template columns, 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. So I'll make it into 3 columns, and then I'll copy this. Actually, I'm not going to copy that. I'm going to go to the media query where I have a main selector here. And for main, I'm going to add grid template columns, just 1FR. So it'll switch to a single column on a mobile device. So now it's 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. Go to mobile size. Get to a single column. That way this thing won't be all huge anymore, because it'll have to fit inside this column. And since I'm putting things inside columns, no more width, no more fixed widths. So wherever I put a fixed width for these slideshows, like for slide container over here, a width of 100% is fine. But I don't want any fixed width. Can't help but feel like I'm in the wrong file here. Which one am I looking at? Open with live server. Oh no, this is the wrong one. Let me close this. Go to this one. Alright, so I had two different files open with similar stuff. Now I'm on the right one. So yeah, I was gonna say take out those fixed widths. So going up here, we have for width for my slide container, I put 500 pixels. I'll make that 100%. Okay, so it'll just take up 100% the width of its column that it's in. For the height, I'm still gonna leave it 300, I think. Let me see. See if it's a problem. Maybe. And I also have some padding on the top over there. Let me get rid of that too. Margin. Actually, it's margin, not padding. So make that 0. Okay. And then notice how this thing is always 300 pixels tall, even if I make this bigger and smaller, while the other one's sort of shrinking. Right? Yeah, these two are like the same height. So to get this one to be the same height, maybe I'll give it a minimum width, or I'll just say minimum height, or I'll just say height 100%. That should take up 100% of the column. I think it is taking up 100%. It's just there's overflow on it, so it doesn't fit in that height. So you're seeing some stuff outside. Remember to not show things outside of the borders. You can always add overflow hidden, which I already do have on the slide container, but maybe I should add it to main as well. Overflow hidden. Nope, it's still there. Let me inspect it. Go to this size. So that's the image, that's the slide, that's the slide container. What did I do for the height? Also get rid of that. What is that? So that's top, right, bottom. Oh, we probably don't need that bottom 50 pixels either. Probably causing that a little bit. Oh, and also, is my SAS watching? Yes, it is. And oh, I guess it's because of these buttons from the W3 schools example. So the height is up to here. So it is filling up the whole thing. This one's not, I guess. This one's got what height on it? I don't know, but that's the Bootstrap one that's not filling up the entire space. So why don't I just go to that? Figure out where. Actually, no, that's gonna be tough to figure out how to change the height of that. But I guess the quickest solution is just to get rid of the W3 schools example. because it's taking up extra space on the bottom. This goes all the way to here. Now, I want to delete it, but yeah, I mean, I want to comment it out, but it's kind of tough when you already have comments within whatever you have selected. That shortcut for commenting stuff doesn't seem to work. So I have no choice but to delete it. So I'll delete that, save it, and yeah, now it's the same height. Okay. Alright, so we got our home page, shopping page, cart, about, contact. Let's work on the next few pages now. I think that's enough time spent on slideshows. Okay, any questions so far before we tackle one of these other pages? Start making this look like something instead of just doing slideshow examples. Okay. Well, we could probably. I'll keep one of these. I'll keep just my slideshow because maybe I'll use the Bootstrap slideshow on a different page. But for this page, on the home page, we'll have like a big welcome image or welcome slideshow, and maybe add some text next to it. So we'll keep maybe a 2-column layout on the home page, meaning we'll have to grab main and we'll change that to 1FR, 1FR on grid template columns. Should divide that into 2, except instead of having another slideshow on this side, I'll replace it with like some welcome text. So here, let's create. We're gonna have to have a shopping page and a cart and a about. So maybe on the shopping page, I'll move this one to the shopping page. So we'll create a new index, or not index, but shop.html. And I'm going to copy paste everything from index to shop. But I'm going to add a big header at the top that says shop so that we know we're on the shopping page if I ever visit this page. So change the title to shop. Why not? And then let's add in our body after the header, maybe before main, we'll add an H1 that says shop. Shop. Save. And also let's make that link actually take us to shop. So wherever we have href equals hashtag and then shop over here, we change that hashtag to shop.html. Don't forget to do that on both pages, on shop.html and on index.html. So maybe take care of those before duplicating the page. So yeah, good idea here. Let me delete shop. let's fix this before we duplicate it. So homepage should always take us to index.html. Cart will take us to cart.html. About will take us to about.html. And contact.html. So now those will actually try to take you to that page. So you click on shop, you're going to try to go to a shop page. Click on cart, it'll try to take you there. But of course, those pages don't exist yet. So now is when you duplicate this. So copy, paste, and rename that to shop. And make another one called contact.html. Copy paste all this code into it. And then let's change the title for shop to shop. Add an h1 before main. Shop. And for index, I guess the home page will also add an h1 here. We'll just say home. Contact, we'll add something that says contact. h1, contact. I don't know, I decided to put it outside of main, but you might want to put it inside main, like it's part of your main content. I'm just going to keep it outside. And then let's check if those 3 pages work. Home, shop, contact. So I still need to do cart and about, but look, home and shop are working. We just need to change the rest of the content. So like I said, on the home page, I'll replace this Bootstrap carousel. So on the home page, we don't need Bootstrap carousel. So I'll take all that and delete it. I'll also, I mean, for now, I'm not using Bootstrap, but you might need to use it later. So why not keep these there just in case? So the Bootstrap CSS and the bundle, I'll keep it there for now. I'm not going to delete it yet. But I will delete. So I did delete the Bootstrap carousel. On shop, I will leave Bootstrap carousel and I'll delete my CSS slideshow. So if we go to homepage, did I save it yet? Why is it still there? My slideshow. Oh, I think I deleted it on one of the other pages. But yeah, I'll delete it again. And I'll leave that Bootstrap bundle just in case. But, oh, what happened to my slideshow? Main, my slideshow. Disappeared. Why did it disappear? I don't know. I'll delete these as well because I'm getting some kind of error for this popper link, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. And why did the rest of it go? I don't know. I mean, it's still here. We've still got our section with the slide container and our images. I'm just not sure why it disappeared. Let's get rid of this Bootstrap link as well since it's not used here anymore. Get rid of the W3 slideshow CSS because I'm not using that. Still currently miss. Oh, you know why? Because I put height 100% and there's nothing there to give that parent container a height. So yeah, that's why it disappeared. So basically, I gotta give main a height because I put height 100% on slide container. So main doesn't have a height, or section doesn't have a height either. So it just has a height of 0 right now. That's why you can't see it. So let me go to my styles. I think, yeah, I'll just give main a minimum height of 500 pixels. There we go. And then if I add text here, then I'll get rid of that minimum height maybe. But I'm gonna add some text on this side, which will be in the second column. So right after the div slide container, just I guess right after the section, I'll add another section. This will hold my text. So we'll say paragraph, or maybe H1, welcome. And then I'll add some lorem, let's say lorem 60. Is that enough text? Where is that text? Save. Oh, this is on contact. Keep going to the wrong page. Okay, well, say contact us. I'll leave that there. Yeah, I actually added it here instead of the. So I'm working on the contact page this whole time. Let's go back to index. And then again, add that section. Add an H1 that says welcome. And maybe just put welcome in normal. I'm not gonna make it all uppercase because changing everything to uppercase is something you can do through CSS if you ever want to do that. But then I'll add a paragraph here. Let's say lorem 75. Save. Okay, so there we go. We got our lorem ipsum text on this side. Of course, it would be nicer if we modified it a little bit, add some padding, and I don't know if we should increase the font size, but definitely need to add some padding. So do that real quick. Say main main section. Let's give it padding 20 pixels. Cool. So that gave the image padding as well as the paragraph here. Gave both sections a little bit of space from the side. And then let's also add padding to the paragraphs in there. So, well, maybe I'll do that outside, like just the general for all paragraphs. We should have padding of 10 pixels. And maybe for that H2 or whatever it is, say H2 comma, why not H1 comma H2 H3 comma H4. All of those will have padding of 10 pixels. And also, since this isn't really filling up as much of this as I wanted, even though I put 75 words in there, which should be enough for a welcome paragraph. I don't know. Maybe I'll add a second paragraph. I'll go to my HTML and copy paste this paragraph. Make it 2 paragraphs. And still not enough to fill up the space. So what I'll do is I can either increase the font size, which I don't know, maybe unnecessary because I think it's big enough to read, and we don't really want it too big because then I don't know, it just looks cartoony. So what I'll do is increase the line height. So if you want to increase the line height on the text, you can say I don't know if I want to do it for all paragraphs, but if I did, I could just put it here, say line height, and increase it maybe like by saying 1 point. I think 1 em even might give it like 1 text space between them. No, nope, it didn't do that. So what about 1.5 em? Yeah, I think that increased the space a little bit. Let's make it even more. Let's go 2 em. Okay, so now it's really spaced apart. I think that's better. It looks easier to read maybe, instead of having the text all close together. Okay, but now whenever we stretch or make this smaller, the text gets larger and the image gets taller as well. Because remember, on that image, I didn't put a height, I put a minimum height. So if it passes the minimum height, that's fine. It'll get as big as the paragraph just to match that. And then our H1 here, let's make sure that's also centered. So for H1, through H4, make sure that these are text align center. Oh, and I just realized it's 8:08. We've gone a little past. Okay, but so that now we got our home page. We have our automatic CSS slideshow there. On the shop page, I'm gonna leave that Bootstrap slideshow. We'll do something with this tomorrow. Oh no, tomorrow's already lab day, isn't it? Because it's Tuesday. I don't know if I'll take up some of the lab tomorrow to do some lessons here, but maybe I'll just give this to you as homework. I want you to add. At this point, there's you know how to add the slideshow. You can add either a Bootstrap slideshow or a CSS slideshow. Actually, I want you to do the CSS one for sure on one of the pages, and then it's up to you if you want to add Bootstrap slideshow somewhere else or the W3 slideshow. You could try adding that one as well. But I don't know why I have problems adding it. Maybe it's because I have the Bootstrap one and my own one, and something's conflicting there. But I'm having trouble with that one. But finish, at least do 2 more pages over the weekend, because I haven't given you too many assignments yet. So why don't I just make the next assignment, add something to the home page and do 2 other pages. Just add some content and make it look like an actual site with stuff in there. Okay, any questions? I will make sure I add this to Google Classroom. CGD 210. Let's see, what do we have so far? I made you create responsive navigation bar. Why is it only one turned in, you guys? Thank you, Christina, for turning that in. But yeah, I know. Did I put a due date? Maybe I didn't put a due date. That's why you guys haven't been turning it in. Let's make sure that's done by Friday. That's the old assignment, just to create the responsive nav bar. Make sure that's done soon. And for the new assignment, well, actually, we've done a lot since creating the nav bar. And all of this is pretty much, it's all one big project, but with steps along the way. So step one was creating a responsive nav bar. And I think I did put, no, I didn't. I thought I put like step one. But anyways, the responsive nav bar was one. We'll say create a CSS slideshow as your second assignment. That one will also make due on Friday because, again, it should be done by now. So again, all stuff that we've already done. And I'll just make the third assignment. Create a site utilizing your nav bar and slideshow from previous examples. Add at least 2 more pages and include some content in each page. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, I'm not really giving you 2 extra assignments. It's just this one I should have already assigned, but we were working on it already. So CSS slideshow, now create a site utilizing the navbar and the slideshow from previous 2 assignments. And that one I guess we'll have till, let's make that maybe next Friday. Okay, but if you're done with the other 2, of course, work on that starting now. All right, any questions? Okay, no questions, then let's take a break. Okay, I'm gonna close this now and switch over to the Canvas assignment we were working on. Hold on, did I? Oh yeah, I was gonna show you. I quickly went over how to do this last week, but let's maybe start over because I didn't spend too much time. I kind of rushed through it because it was lab day. So let's close these and let's was it this one? Wait. Let's call this canvas 2, so I can extract this one. Was it this one? Yes, okay, so we started off with a single ball, and it does bounce, I believe. Yes, it does. So we will go from that to as many balls as your computer can handle. And we'll be able to do that because we're going to be using classes or constructor functions. All right, so currently, let me just rush through what we have so far. Let's go here. I'll open this on the side. In order to get just a single ball with a canvas that fills the page, well, first of all, I did this little CSS reset here, padding 0, margin 0, box sizing, border box, just to get rid of any extra margins there might be. Then we've got our JavaScript here. So we got our canvas, got a canvas element here inside the body. It's actually the only thing in there right now besides the script tag. The script tag has all of our JavaScript. Okay, so we've got just the canvas there, and then here say let canvas equals document.query selector canvas, so we could grab that. So we have that element, and once you have that element, you can say canvas.get dot set attribute style border 2 pixels solid. If you want to give that a border, let's go with like a 5 pixel border right there. And let's see. I don't know why there's always the scroll bar here. No matter how small I try to make the canvas, there's still a little bit of a scroll bar. Maybe we can decrease this even more. So I set the canvas width equal to the window dot inner width -8. Let's make it -10. Same for the height. Okay, -15. There. Okay, I just don't want to have that scroll bar there. Again, it pops up though. I don't know why it does that. Oh, you know what? Because I'm setting it to 15 here, but I forgot to do it here. When I resize the window, then it becomes 8. So make sure we make that 15 as well. Okay, so all right, so no scroll bar appearing. So canvas is just entire size of my page right now. So the window.addEventListener resize, we're listening to the event of window resizing. So anytime you make your window bigger and smaller, it will call this function here. So whenever we resize, this function happens, which modifies the width and height of that canvas. Then we say let ctx equals canvas.getContext2D. So we get the 2D context out of the canvas. I've got this let circle x equal 20, let circle y equal 20, but we don't need that anymore. That was for when I was creating the circle outside of a class. Okay, but now that we have a class, again, a class is just a way to create a blueprint for an object that you can create just by calling this. You just use the new keywords. You say new circle, and then you pass in these arguments: the x position, the y position, the radius, and the color. And then it builds a circle for you based on what you passed in. So the x being the x position, where it is on the screen on the horizontal axis, and the y axis up and down. So 0, 0 being the top left corner, and then the width of your page, or the width of the canvas, and the height of the canvas being the bottom right corner. So the higher the number, the more to the right and to the bottom. Okay, so if the X is higher, then it's further to the right. If the Y is higher, it's further down. Okay, 0, 0 is top left. The stock color, in case we want to change the color of each circle that we create. And then we also have this dot velocity. This dot last time I was using just to check my frame rate, but it looks like I'm not using it anywhere, so just get rid of that. So this dot velocity, we need a velocity variable because we want to control the speed. So right now it's at 1, but you can change that to 5 for the X and the Y, and you can see now it's going 5 times faster. Of course, you could set one of them to 0 to get it going in just one direction. 0, 5. Have it going up and down. Let's just put like some random numbers there. And then when we draw, we're going to be using the circle's own draw function. So the circle class has a draw method in it, which will do the circle drawing stuff for you. So begin path, the arc using this dot x, this dot y, this dot radius. So whatever x, y, and radius you passed in will be used to draw the circle. Then ctx.fill style will set the color to whatever color you passed in there. This dot color, and then it'll fill it and close the path. And then here I've created an animate method here, but I'm gonna have to take this out of there actually. The reason why we can't have an animate method inside the circle is because, well, actually we can. No, we'll keep that. Maybe we'll call it update instead of animate, because it's not really gonna be this right here won't be animating, because I'll be removing the request animation frame from there. So we'll call it update. Basically update the position. Every time we call update, it will figure out the new X and Y position. Okay. It will also change the X and Y position. So in update, we're gonna clear the rectangle. No, we're not gonna do that here either. We'll probably take that out. So why don't I take that out now? I'm taking it out because if I leave it here, every circle that I create using this class is gonna clear the rectangle before drawing the circle or before updating the circle each time. So clearing the canvas multiple times every 16 milliseconds, only the last circle that you draw is gonna really show, because it's gonna be clearing everything before it. So that's why we shouldn't put this inside the class here. Let me just show you what I mean. Let's leave that as animate so it continues to work. But what if I created a new circle? I call this one circle 2, but let's create a circle 1 and a circle 3. So each of these circles is gonna get created based on that class. Let's put different values in there. And then each circle is gonna draw and each circle is gonna animate. but as you can see, only we're seeing one of them here. Let's make this red, this one blue, so I can prove that only the green one shows, because that's the last one that I created. So it's clearing it. What's happening is every time this circle moves, every time it um, request animation frame calls the animate function, it clears the entire rectangle, so it clears everything that came before it. So all you're left with is with that last circle. That's why this will have to be removed. Now if I remove it and save it, now you'll see the others. There's a blue one and a red one in there now. They're not getting cleared anymore, so you're able to see them. But also, since we're not clearing anything, you're also seeing every single frame being drawn. It's not erasing the previous frames, so it's drawing lines instead of bouncing around with a single ball. So when we animate, what we do want to keep here is checking if this dot x is greater than canvas dot width minus this dot radius, so that we can know when to switch the velocity to the opposite direction. And we're also saying this dot x equals canvas dot width minus this dot radius, just to make sure if it does somehow get outside of the canvas. And this is actually checking greater than equal to canvas width. So it's checking if the ball flies off to the right side out of the canvas. If it accidentally does get outside, like let's say maybe you're resizing the screen or something and that happens, or it's just moving way too fast, then setting this dot x equals canvas dot width minus this dot r, just make sure that if it goes outside, it brings it right back inside. Okay, make sure that it's impossible for the ball to stay outside the canvas. And then of course this dot velocity x times equals -1 just switches it to the opposite direction once it reaches the wall. And then if this dot y is greater than canvas dot height, that's just checking if the ball reached the bottom, and then it's doing the same thing, making sure it stays inside the canvas with this dot y equals canvas dot height minus this dot radius. Okay, because canvas height is that bottom position for the y, and I'm just subtracting the radius because the circle, the point at which you're calculating the circle from is in the center, so subtract the radius if you want to make sure once the edge reaches the end, it pops back in. Okay. So same thing for if it goes left or if it goes up. And here we just make sure that this dot x plus equals this dot velocity x, meaning the position. Remember, it starts off somewhere, right? It could start off 0, 0, top left corner. We just make sure that every time this animate function is called, which will be every 16 milliseconds, so this is going to constantly be calling. Every time it calls, the x position is updated. We add the velocity to it. So whatever the velocity is set to, if it's 3, then every time we draw a new frame, the x position is updated to be 3 higher. Or if it's negative, when it reaches the edge, remember we can multiply the velocity by -1, so this can, whenever the ball reaches the edge, this becomes -3. So instead of adding to it, it's actually subtracting, so it's coming back the other way. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. We're adding the velocity to the position, and that's updating the position, so it's moving it, and we're drawing it after we move it. So every time we move it, we draw it again, so it gets drawn in a new location for the x and new location for the y. Okay, and then here I'm doing request animation frame, this dot animate. Basically, that's what's causing it to animate. This is making animate call every 16 milliseconds with request animation frame. Okay, but like I said, we're gonna have to move this out of here so that we can animate the others. Look at that, it's gonna keep doing this and just draw a bunch of lines. So here's what we need to do. We need to create a new animation function. We'll say let animate equal, and I'll do an arrow function. So what's gonna happen inside the animate function? The circles are gonna get drawn. So basically, well, we need to do this after we created the circles. So after creating the 3 circles, we'll say let animate equal, and then circle 1. We'll put this in an array so we can loop through. Circle 1, circle 2, and circle 3. You could also save this as a new variable. You can say let circles equal circle 1, 2, and 3. And then you can say circles dot for each circle circle dot, well, we're gonna call it update. Circle dot update. So this is gonna be called update now. And what update is gonna do is do the it's gonna clear the rectangle, I guess. Actually, no, that's not gonna clear it. We're gonna this animate function that we just created, let animate equal this. It's gonna draw each circle, or it's gonna update each circle with request animation frame. So we're gonna do request animation frame, and instead of this dot animate, we're gonna just say animate. So request animation frame is gonna call the animate function over and over. So over and over, we're gonna loop through each circle. Actually, we should put this outside of here. We don't need to define circles every time. We'll say let circles equal circle 1, 2, and 3 outside of the animate function. And then inside the animate function, we'll loop through each of these circles. So take turns, circle 1, dot update, circle 2, update, circle 3, update. And we'll do that every 16 milliseconds because we're using request animation frame to request this function every 16 milliseconds. So we don't need circle dot animate anymore because that does not exist. Right? There's no more circle dot animate. I changed it to update, and I'm calling it through this instead of through the update function itself. And then let me inspect it real quick. No errors yet, so oops, go back. So they're getting drawn, they're just not updating yet. Or maybe they are, but we're missing something. Update is gonna change the position and draw it. So it should be moving if we are actually updating. Oh, we're not calling animate. Okay, because animate is just a function right now that we never called. So if we actually want it to start working, we have to call it, just say animate. And it's still not moving. Maybe I have an error. Uncaught reference error, circle is not defined at animate. Oh, circles, not circle. There we go. There we go. So now it's gonna animate, and since we're not um, since we're not doing the update from here, I mean we're not animating it through here. This is doing is just updating the position and drawing the circle. It's not actually animating. What's animating is calling update through here, circle.update every 16 milliseconds through here. So this is what's animating it. This is just an update function. And then here we're just calling that update function every 16 milliseconds. So one of the things we want to do here when we're calling it every 16 milliseconds is clear the rectangle. So ctx dot clear rectangle from 0, 0, top left corner, all the way to canvas dot width and canvas dot height. That just makes sure we clear the whole thing. So now they're bouncing around, and they all start off in the same position. They all have the same velocity at first, so that's why they're all moving in the same direction. But if you want to randomize where they start, which way they bounce, we have to add some additional JavaScript to that. But I don't want to do that just yet. I just want to make sure you guys can do this much so far. And then we'll move on to doing some additional stuff to it. Any questions? If you want, I could like start from scratch just to make it more clear. Since I don't know, you guys don't ask questions, so I don't know if you're getting it or if it's too easy or it's too hard. I have no idea without some feedback. Here's what I'll do. I'll create a new JavaScript function. I'll call this animate.js. Here again, we'll do all the things that we need to do. But I'll do this on a separate. I'll keep canvas.html. I'll just make a new one called animate.js or .html. Just to try this from scratch one more time so we could make sure you understand. And then I'll open animate.html. So far it's blank, of course, we have nothing there. Again, the first thing we do is create the canvas. And then the second thing we do is add our JavaScript. So now would be a good time to follow along if you want to just follow from scratch, from the beginning. Except unlike the other one though, I'll actually link to an external file here. That's why I created animate.js. So I'll link to, say, source equals animate.js. Right. So that lets us put all the JavaScript in a separate file here. And I'll even open these side by side. We don't really need to open these side. You don't need to see this anymore, right? It's just a canvas element and a script element linking to the JavaScript file. So I'll close that and switch back to a single here. So first grab that canvas element. Let can equal document dot query selector canvas. So that'll just grab any element called canvas or the first one it finds. We only have one, so that's good. And and then let we'll say can dot set attribute. And remember, brought this up in the beginning when we were just looking at the canvas. If you use HTML, if you use CSS to change the width and height of the canvas, it scales everything inside the canvas as well, so it makes it pixelated. So it's important that when you're setting the width and the height, you do it through JavaScript. So can dot set attribute. Actually, well, if we do set attribute, that's the same as set attribute is adding a CSS style to it. So we don't want to change the height through there. I used set attribute to give it a border. But if we're changing the height, we'll just use canvas.width and canvas.height. So, but I will set the attribute, I guess I'll set style to background color. Let's do hashtag 223. I'll give us this color background. So we're starting off with a dark background canvas here, and then I'll say can dot width equals window dot inner width. There's a couple other ways to change the width and the height. Window dot inner width. Inner width is not a function. Okay. It's not. It's just a property. So window dot inner width. Now it's gonna be that wide. See, and we do get a scroll bar though. That scroll bar is just there because again there's like some default margin and padding. Why don't I try document dot body dot width. I don't know if that will work. No, that does not work. There's there's a couple other widths that we can try out. Just there's the inner width, window dot inner width. There's client X, I think. I forget. If we inspect it, we might be able to find some. HTML is the document, so if we go, let's type window, and then window returns the whole window object, and we can see what's in there. And one of the things I'm using is inner width. Let's see if we could find it. Not there. Okay, there is. So inner width, inner height. There we could see those two properties all the way down here. Let me type width. See if there's others. There's also screen available width, but that's like 1920. That's just the maximum you can have, so that's not what we want. There's also outer width, but we'll stick with inner width because I don't know. That's what I've always used. All we have to do to make sure that there's no scroll bar is make it a little bit smaller than the inner width, and also get rid of the margins and padding. But I'll just say minus 20 pixels or minus 20. There we go. So now it will always be like a little bit less than the width of the window, and we'll say can dot height equals window dot inner height minus 20 as well. Cool. And then we'll right now when I resize the window, oops, you can see that it does not resize the canvas. If I refresh, it does, but when I open it, make it bigger, you can see that stays whatever size it was when I first refreshed. So what you have to do is make sure that it updates that every time I resize the window. So in order to do that, we just have to add that window dot add event listener. We're going to listen for a resize event. Every time we resize, we are going to do this. Why don't we put this in a function so we don't have to define it again? Let's say let resize canvas equal, and we'll just put this in here. So let resize canvas equal can dot width equals window dot inner width minus 20, can dot height equals window dot inner height minus 20. So there's a whole function now that I created that does that for us. So instead of making a new anonymous function and setting that again through there, I can just call resize canvas just like that. So whenever we resize, it's going to do that. But we also want to call it once right in the beginning, because this otherwise it's only going to resize when we resize the window. So we want to resize it regardless right when the page loads. So we'll call it right there as well, resize canvas. And then when we resize the window, we'll also call resize canvas. Here you don't have to put the parentheses, you shouldn't. You only put the parentheses if you ended up creating an anonymous function and calling it this way. Then you'd have to put those there. But if you're not using a whole anonymous function, you can just type the name. Okay, let's check if that works now. Open, not that one, this one. So is it resizing? Yes, it is. So every time I make the window bigger and smaller, it resizes. Okay. Next, let's create our circle class. We'll call it ball. No, I'll call it circle, so I don't say the word balls all the time. Let's say let circle equal, or sorry, class circle class circle. It's going to have a constructor. Okay, so that's how you create a class basically. Just say class and give it a class name. Usually we make it capital so that we know it's a object constructor, not just a regular object. And then this will take the properties that we want to customize. So what do you want to always because you're going to be using this to create circles. So what do you want to be different on the circles? The width, the height, the position, the color, the velocity, anything that you want to customize on the circle, you should include it in the constructor. Otherwise, if you don't have anything that's going to be custom, they're all going to be the same exact circle, then there would be no need to pass anything in here and no need to have this dot. Well, you still use this for other things, but um, here I want to customize everything. I'll say the X, the Y, the velocity. Um, we could pass in velocity X and then velocity Y as separate things, or we could just pass velocity, and we just have to remember that this has to be, we're gonna have to pass in an object for that velocity object. Okay. And then we need the color. What else? Actually, before color, let's do radius. Anything else? I guess that's it. The position, the speed, the size of the circle, and the color. Those are all things we'll have unique on each circle. Okay, so then we say this dot x equals x, this dot y equals y, this dot velocity equals velocity. Actually, you might forget that this is gonna be an object, so instead we'll say this dot velocity x, this dot velocity y. It'll just make more sense just to pass in um, just a single word for, or a single string for each of these, or value, not a whole object. Right? You could pass in a whole object and call it velocity, or we'll just pass in a value and call it velocity x and velocity y. Then we'll have to say this dot velocity equals an object that's gonna have an x, which will be velocity x, and a y, which we'll get from velocity y. Okay, so yeah, this will get passed into the x property of the velocity object, and velocity y will get passed into the y property of the velocity object. Then we need this dot radius equals radius, and this dot color equals color. You can also put a default on some of these if you don't feel like passing them in all the time, but we'll just leave it like that. The way you add a default is by putting like an equal next to it. In some languages, you can only pass a default to the last ones, I think, but I don't know. I think we could put defaults on these. Well, we'll try it later when we're actually creating it. All right, so that's the constructor. Outside the constructor, right, outside of this whole constructor function is where we'll add the methods. So one will be draw. This will be used to draw the circle. So whenever we say circle.draw, let's say we create a circle, like let circle 1 equal new circle. And if we want to draw that circle, we'll say circle1.draw, like that, and it should call that circle's draw method, which every circle will have because we're including it in the class here. So draw will do this. We'll say, well, actually, before we do all that, we need to make sure we get that, what do you call it, the 2D context out of the canvas. So can, or let ctx equal can dot get context 2D. Make sure I'm not paused. Okay, good. So ctx equals can.getContext2D to get that context object that's used to draw on the canvas. So now we can say ctx dot do this and dot do that. So we'll say ctx dot begin path, ctx dot arc, and it's gonna need it says right here x, y, radius, start angle, end angle, and then this last one is optional if you want. We don't need that last one. So the x position is going to come from this dot x, y is going to come from this dot y, radius will come from this dot radius, and then the start angle, that will be 0, and the end angle will be math pi times 2. That's just to get a full circle. Okay, so this dot x, this dot y, 0, actually the radius, this dot radius, and then 0, math dot pi times 2, and ctx dot fill style equals this dot color. So we're making sure we set the color that's going to be drawn, and we're going to set it to this dot color. So each circle, before drawing it, we'll set the color. That's why we're able to get separate color circles, because each one has its own draw method with its own this dot color. Then ctx dot fill, and then ctx dot close path. We're done drawing that circle. Let's just test it out before we move any further. I'm gonna say let circle1 equal new circle. Let's give it a x position of 100, a y of 200. We can see here my own constructor right here, my own circle class, I mean, is giving me hints. It knows that I need a x, a y, a velocity, and here it says any. But really, there's a way to like make sure that this knows that instead of any, this will be a number. Instead of any, this will be another number, and then color will be a string. So number, string. The way you set that is by using something called TypeScript, but we won't get into that. But TypeScript is basically like instead of .js, you would put .ts, and then TypeScript is just it forces you to do extra work in your JavaScript just to make it more error proof, basically. It makes you double check everything, make sure you're passing in the correct values. It's something you should definitely learn after JavaScript, I think. I mean, I did learn TypeScript a little bit, but I haven't used it in a while because I have no need to, so I kind of forgot everything about TypeScript. But that would force you to define your data type, and so instead of just any, it would specifically ask for something like the ctx.arc does. Like when we do ctx.arc, it says number, boolean, right? It tells you the data types that it expects. But since we're not really going that far, all we get is any. Okay, so velocity, let's see, x, y, and then velocity x and velocity y. So let's say that my speed for this is 3 for the x and then 4 for the y. And then the radius, we'll say 30. And then for the color, we'll say, let's make it something bright so we could see it on that dark canvas. So I'll make it yellow. And then to draw the circle, we'll say circle 1 dot draw. Press save, and there it is. So we drew a circle right at 100, 200 down with well, we can't really test the velocity yet, but it has velocity, and it has a radius of 30 and a color of yellow. Okay. So what's gonna happen every time we want to animate that circle is the velocity is gonna get added to this. So every 16 milliseconds, so fraction of a second, it's gonna update. It's gonna add the velocity to the position. So instead of 100, this is gonna be 103. This is gonna be 204. And save that. You'll see that it moved slightly. And add another 4 to that. Make that 8. Make that 6. Save it. You see it moves slightly. So that's what the animation does basically. Every second it updates that, or every split second, every 16 milliseconds to be exact, it will add the velocity to the x and y positions, and it will move the ball. Okay. All right, so we don't need to draw it yet. We will draw it when we're animating. Okay, so next, after the draw method, we need to add the update. So what update will do is do that, add this to this. So just I'll do one simple one just without the checking if it's going out of bounds and stuff, just so you can see how easy that is to do. Once you have the draw method, your update method just needs to say this dot x plus equals this dot velocity dot x. Velocity dot x, because remember this is an object. This dot velocity dot x will get us that velocity x that we passed in. So this dot velocity dot x, this dot y plus equals this dot velocity dot y. So that's what update is gonna do. We can also throw in the draw method in here. So every time we update, we could also draw this dot draw. So if I call circle 1 dot update, it should also draw the circle. There it is. And why don't we do this? I'm gonna save that, and I'm gonna call it through here actually. I'm gonna open the console. Let's say circle 1 dot update. And then I'm gonna press up and press it again. So you can see if I keep pressing up and enter, calling that, there. You can see it's slowly moving the circle to the bottom right because it's adding to the x and the y every time. Okay, except I'm not clearing the rectangle, so it's drawing a line. So I have to also clear the canvas. But we'll do that again outside. So update, all it's going to do is add the velocity to the position and then draw the circle. Okay, now your previous assignment was just to draw. So if you're just trying to start updating it or start animating, just add an update method to your class and just do these 3 lines. That should be enough to make it draw a circle and move it each time you call update. So now if let's do one simple with set interval. So we'll say window dot set interval. We want to call circle1 dot update. Actually, I don't think we can call it like this. Can we? Yeah, we can. Circle1 dot update. We want to call it every let's say 20 milliseconds. Except we might get an error here because it might say circle1 is not defined because I defined it after I'm doing this. So gotta make sure we put that before we do it. So define the circle first, then try to update it. Save that. Inspect. Do we have any errors? Oh, okay, you can see it's calling something every 15 milliseconds, but we have an error. Undefined reading X at update. I wonder what that means. Oh, yeah, this was that problem I ran into before. So I think we do need to pass this into an anonymous function. I think that's the only problem. So we just have to, instead of just putting the name, this dot update, we have to put in a whole function in here and say this dot up, or not this, but circle1 dot update, and actually execute it with the parentheses. Okay, so now it works. You can see, but since I didn't put in any for update, all I did is add the velocity, so it's just going to keep going in that direction forever. It will never bounce back at this point. Also, it's not clearing the rectangle, so in the set interval, you could also say ctx dot clear rectangle 0 0 canvas dot width canvas dot height. If you do that, we have another error. Reference canvas. Oh, I didn't call it canvas, that's why. I called it can. Okay, so now you can see it's just a single ball, not a line anymore, because every time I call update, right before it, I clear the rectangle. Okay, so we're not going to be using set interval. With set interval, you could control the speed of it. You could say like 1,000. That will only move the ball every 1 second. You can see every second it just moves a little bit. But request animation frame is just a method that was created specifically for smooth animations. So instead of you deciding how often to move that ball, it does it when the browser is ready, and that's usually every 16 milliseconds. So that's why it moves at about this speed when we use request animation frame, except it's much smoother. Right? Like I could already notice there's like some like skipping and jitteriness happening there. So instead of window.setInterval, the way we animate is by using request animation frame. And request animation frame, you use that to call a function over and over whenever it's ready. So it works more like set timeout. Remember, set timeout is another way to animate, but it's more like, this is more similar to the way request animation frame works. So with set timeout, you'd have to call a function after a certain amount of time. So you would put in whatever function you want to call and then decide how often you want to call it. Every 1,000 milliseconds, or how long to wait before you call it actually. So in order to use that to animate, because if you just call it like this, it's just going to call that function one time after waiting a second. But if you wanted to repeatedly do that over and over again after waiting a certain amount of time, like 16 milliseconds, then the way you do it is first by defining the function. We'll call this one let animate equal, and what animate will do is circle one dot update, and also clear the rectangle. ctx dot clear rectangle 0 0 canvas dot width canvas dot height. Okay, so animate will first clear the rectangle, then it will update the circle, and it will do this repeatedly because we will add set timeout, animate, or we got to do it like this again with the anonymous function, animate, and we want to do that every, let's say, 16 milliseconds. Okay, it's not going to do anything just yet because we haven't called animate. We have to first call it, so animate. And okay, let's see what the problem is. Always an error. Canvas is not defined. I called it canvas again. It's can, not canvas. Okay, so there you go. So now it's animating again, just like set interval was, but now I'm using set timeout. Okay, and request animation frame works just like set timeout, except we don't put the 16. It does it for us. So we just have to change this to request animation frame, get rid of that 16, and then save it. Now you can see it does the same thing except smoother, no jitteriness. Okay, and that's all there is to animating. That's the basics of it. This is the correct way to do it with a class. Why is this a better way? Because now we can create many circles, and we can even randomize these numbers and colors. And we can automatically generate as many circles as we want just by creating an array, filling it with circles randomly, and then looping through that array and calling update for every circle in the array. But try to absorb this much for now. Let me know if you have any questions. So I'll give you guys like, I don't know, a couple minutes to try some stuff out. I mean, it's almost time to go. It's 9:36. So I'll only give you like a minute to try that. You'll have more time tomorrow during lab to try these things. But I want to really quickly get to finishing this up with multiple circles. Okay, but just let me know if you have any questions at this point. All right. So now to filling the canvas with 1,000 circles, 1,000 circles of different sizes and different colors. How do we do that? Actually, before I do that, let's just add that the test real quick to make the ball bounce in the opposite direction. So for that, before we add the x position or add the velocity to the position, we need to first check where the position is currently. So if this dot x at this point is greater than or equal to canvas dot height, or canvas dot width, since we're checking the x position. If, why does it say canvas dot gradient? This dot x is greater than or equal to canvas can dot height. I keep forgetting I called it can, not canvas. This dot x is greater than or equal to can dot width. Then actually not just the width, but the width minus this dot radius. I'm gonna include that little gap so we make sure it doesn't like get stuck in the wall or go past the wall slightly. Then we will set, first we'll say this dot x equals can dot width minus this dot radius. Will actually before, yeah, no, we'll do that, and then we will also set this dot velocity dot x, multiply that by -1. So times equals -1 to get it moving in the opposite direction. So that now instead of adding this velocity x, it'll subtract this velocity x. And that's for the checking for the right side. For the left side, we'll do almost the same thing, except we'll check if it's less than or equal to 0 plus this dot radius, or just this dot radius. And then we'll set this equal to this dot radius. And again, we'll multiply that by -1 to get it going in the other direction. And I'll copy those two, paste them, and then here instead of x, Control D to select all the x's, change those to y's, and then control or double click to highlight the width, Control D, oops, there's only two. Select those two and change those to can.height. Okay, so at this point now it should be bouncing correctly. Yes, it is. Great. So we added the ability to bounce off the walls. Next, we need to figure out how to create multiple circles. So to do that, instead of me manually adding this circle 1, I'll create a circles array. Say let circles equal an array, just an empty array for now. And I will fill that circles array with multiple, as many circles as I want by using a for loop. So I'll say for let I equal 0, I is less than or equal to however many circles you want. So let's say 100, I plus plus. That's just gonna let us do whatever we want 100 times here. What we want to do 100 times is create new circle, and push it into the circles array. So circles dot push. So So what are we going to push into the circles array? A new circle with math.random times, what do you want your max position to be, like where do you want it to be located? We could just multiply this by, I guess, anything from 0 to the canvas width, right? Because math.random gives you a random number between 0 and 1, so 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3. So if you multiply that by the width of the canvas, then if it's 1, then it'll be right at the edge. If it's 0 0.5, it'll be in the middle of the canvas. So math.random times can.width, but we also got to make sure it doesn't go past the canvas, so minus this dot radius. And we'll do the same, copy paste. We'll do the same for the height, for the Y position. For the, what's the next one? The velocity. For the velocity, we'll also do math.random. Math.random. What do you want the max velocity to be? 10. So multiply it by 10. And same for the Y velocity. Math.random times 10. What's next? The radius. What do you want the radius to be? Math.random times, I don't know, 50, let's say. So max radius will be 50. There we go. So Prettier just reformatted that for me nicely on separate lines. So we got our X position, Y position, our, what is that? The velocity X, velocity Y, the radius. Now we need the color. So for the color, I'll do, again, random by using template literals. So the backticks is, again, something introduced in ES6 just to make it easier to put a string together instead of using the plus and concatenating stuff. Just do template literals. So for color, you need something RGB. Okay, and you need the red, the green, and the blue, right? So I want the red, green, and blue to be random numbers between 0 and 255. So, but I also need to interpret it as JavaScript. If I just write math.random times 255, it's not going to read this as JavaScript. It's just going to read it as a string. So what I have to do is wrap math.random times 255 in curly brackets with a $sign in front. So now it will read that as an actual random number. And I will do the same for the green and the blue. So that will give me a random color. So I'm going to push 100 random circles into the circles array with this for loop, all with random numbers for their position and radius and everything. I think that was it, right? Just velocity, radius, color. So yeah, I got all those arguments passed in. And then once we have that circles array, then here instead of circle1.update, I'll say circles dot for each circle dot update. And see if I have an error. No error, so hasn't started animating yet, or I'm not seeing anything yet. So let's figure out why. Um, circles dot push, new circle, color X, Y. Um, velocity X, velocity Y, radius, color. What am I missing? Oh, wait, no. It should work. I don't know why it's not working yet. We got our RGB set up correctly, I think. What's missing? Let me take out the clear for a second. Is that doing anything? Nope. No, that's it. It should be working. So if there's a problem, it has to be in the for loop or something. Circles dot push, new circle, and I don't have any errors, so it's gonna be hard to figure out when there's no errors. Let me see if circles actually has circles in it. Yeah, we can see there's 100 circles in there. Circles. One, let's just check one of the circles, see if it has all the properties it needs. Oh, it says X not a number, Y not a number. Okay, so there we go. That's how you figure out what's wrong. How about the velocity? Not a number. Okay, we're getting not a number for these. I wonder if it's because I'm multiplying by can dot width. Oh, because I'm using this dot radius. Oops. Okay, so we can't use this dot radius, of course. Yeah. There is no this here. There we go. Only problem is since I can't add the minus this dot radius, I might get circles that spawn like too close to the edge and get stuck in it or something. But then again, I do have a check for if it is past the edge, it will just come back inside. So no, we're good. We don't even need that minus this dot radius. That should be enough. And if I wanted more circles, I could just change this to 1,000. I've got 1,000 of them. And I don't know, you could even make it more interesting and make it maybe RGB A instead of just RGB. So you could have some circles that are transparent. Just have to add another comma here, another $sign curly bracket, math.random. And for opacity, for the alpha, when you're using RGBA, it's going to be a number between 0 and 1. So just math.random should do. Save that, and now we got some that are transparent. And then we could maybe next class add some interactivity to that. Okay, I know we covered a good amount today. I don't know if I gave this to you last time, but I'll give it to you this time to study it. but your assignment is to create your own um, circle object or circle class that also can draw multiple circles. So you're gonna need a circle class with a draw method and an update method. The update method is just gonna need to do those checks to multiply the velocity by -1 if it reaches the edge. And it's also gonna need to, the main thing the update will do is add the velocity to the x position and then draw the circle. Then you just need to create that circles array, fill it up with random circles like this, and then call the animate method, and then for each of those circles that you created for that, you will update the circle. Okay, simple as that. I don't know, that's the best I can explain it, but it's 9:53, so let me give you guys the sign out code. And yeah, I'll upload this to OneDrive and I'll link it to you. I'll make sure I assign it in Google Classroom so you could actually see where the link is.